Unemployment, the federal debt, and the economy, just a few of the hot-button issues fresh on the minds of Arkansans as well as the nation. Now to talk more about these topics and others, Representative Tim Griffin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too, sir. Let's get right to it. You know, a lot of Americans ticked off and suffering, as you well know, even more now that the Super Committee could not reach an agreement on how to trim $1.2 trillion from the federal deficit. Now the blame game is on.
Sure.
What do you attribute the problems to, and how soon can Congress put aside all the politics and focus on the task at hand, and that's getting this economy back on the right track?
Well, I think a couple things. First of all, as we talked about several times before, I think we need big and bold reforms to really get us, quote, back on track. That includes fundamental tax reform and dealing with the debt and regulatory reform, which is crushing a lot of job creators. A lot of us have voted for very, very big, bold reforms. I think what happened with the Super Committee is you had some who were willing to change a lot of very sound programs here that we have, such as Medicare and Medicaid, but reform them to save them for the future. There are a lot of people willing to do that because that is an essential part of dealing with this problem. Those are part of what we call mandatory spending. They take up like 60% of the federal budget. Others just wanted to raise taxes. And I think there are a lot of us who look at the history of the federal government and we say, do you really believe that if you send a little extra in taxes, that that's going to somehow be spent reducing the debt? And a lot of us just don't believe it. I think that the federal government ought to gain some credibility by first cutting and showing us where they're going to cut and making some bold changes. And I think those two visions of simply raising taxes on the one hand or reducing spending and reforming some of these programs to save them, that's the debate we had during the debt agreement in August. And all this Super Committee did was move that same agreement to November, to November.
Some are saying that there was an actual incentive for this committee to fail, basically saying that no deal is better than a bad deal. Would you agree with that?
Well, it was supposed to be an incentive for it to succeed by having these automatic cuts. That was the whole point of having the so-called sequester, that you would somehow push folks to get there. You know, I think I wish the president would have spent as much time trying to help get an agreement on the U.S. debt problem as he did working on the European debt problem. I think that certainly he doesn't have a magic wand, but I think he could have had an impact on that. At the end of the day, though, he needs to come out and tell his party, yes, we're going to have to reform some of these long-term programs because they're driving us into bankruptcy. And we have been willing to do that. I voted for fundamental reform of Medicare and a lot of these other programs in our budget. I think we need fundamental tax reform. You almost can't go too big and too bold for me. I will vote. We're talking about $1 trillion.
Yeah.
That is nothing. If you look at it, it's $100 billion a year.
Over 10 years.
That's $1 trillion over 10 years. Well, we're in the red over $1 trillion every single year. Not over 10 years, every single year. So we need 4, 5, 6, 7 trillion is what we need. And that's bold. That will change this country. That will give confidence to the markets. But a lot of folks are scared to go that bold. But I tell you, if we don't go big and bold like that, Europe may be coming to a place near us.
Another major issue that Congress faces this year is whether or not to extend the payroll tax holiday or let it expire. We're talking about income that's going to be taking out of millions of Americans' paychecks come January 1st. If it expires, how's this going to play out?
Sure. Well, here's what I'd say. That we need to separate good ideas from good ideas that will actually fix our problem. There are a lot of people running around talking about all these ideas they have for job creation and what have you. And there are a lot of good ideas that I might even be in favor of. But let's not confuse every good idea with a good idea that will actually help address the jobs and debt problem.
Extend it or let it expire?
Well, I'll have to see what it's packaged with. I generally favor giving people more of their own money back, but I don't think this particular tax is going to help create jobs. Job creators told us at our jobs conference, they said, look, a little break here or there is not the problem. The problem is demand. There's not enough demand in the economy. What job creators tell me is we need fundamental tax reform. So I don't want to just tweak a little break here. I want to completely reform the way businesses are taxed and the way individuals are taxed so we can compete with people all around the world.
This is not going to be an easy task for anyone who's a member of Congress. You look at the approval ratings, 9%. The IRS has an approval rating that is 4 times
Sure.
higher than that.
Sure.
Paris Hilton has
Sure.
a higher approval rating than Congress.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's not something to laugh about.
Well, here's the deal. Historically, Congress has had a very low approval rating. And there's always been an inconsistency between the fact that people think of Congress with a low approval rating, but they continue to re-elect folks over and over. And that disconnect is sometimes hard to explain. But I would say this. When you talk about the Congress, you're really talking about 2 different bodies with 2 different visions. The House and the Senate have completely different views of where we ought to be going as a country. We've had over 800 votes in the House.
Yep.
We have voted for fundamental tax reform, etc. We've got something called the Forgotten 15. They were 15, now it's more like 20. These are jobs bills that we've passed that are piling up like cordwood over in the Senate. So what I would ask people to do is take a look at the House, take a look at the Senate, see what they're doing. I think a lot of what you see in these polls is just a general frustration. I have that frustration. I have to work in that frustration.
It's not easy to
I
overcome.
live in that frustration. And so I feel that. I want to get some stuff done.
I think our Kansans and Americans want you and everyone else to get it done. I know it's not going to be an easy task. There are a lot of challenges that await you. I appreciate you taking the time to join us.
I will keep trying till we get something done.
There we go.
And I just want to say I'm wearing my red and white tie in honor of the Razorback that passed away.
Garrett Ekman, yeah.
Yeah, Garrett. And also, go Hogs this weekend. Hope you're not an LSU fan. So.
Oh, what are you kidding me? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.